Winter is coming.
Might just be the cold.
Winter is coming.
It's cold outside.
You don't know cold.
Winter is coming for him.
It's either me or this cold, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere.
And winter is coming.
You look cold, boys.
Tis a bit nippy.
Winter's coming. Winter's coming.
That's cold. Winter is coming.
Mm-hmm. It's cold and it's wet.
Winter is coming.
You're crying because you're cold?
You're a long way from home. And winter is coming.
I imagine you might be rather cold.
And winter is coming.
Oh, that's all right, I'm fine.
You're not. You're freezing.
And winter is here.
Hello, everybody.
Winter
is here. Winter is here too. Snowing out.
I need to ditch my background. That was from the last show. Let's get a little matrixy.
The Rick.
There we go. All right. So what's happening, my friend?
Oh, not too much. Just laying low.
Yeah.
Just kind of laying low and doing quite a bit on this Middle East stuff. And I think we've got, when we make our show today, we'll get into some of the media that's out there, because I'm not totally certain that the U.S. audience is seeing any of this stuff.
No, I think rest assured.
It's very Orwellian, so far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, this is a big event. This Gaza genocide is really a big event. It's pretty hard to hide. And so there's quite a bit of pretty graphic media out there.
So from what I know, their ceasefire, quote unquote, ended.
Yes.
Because they were like hustling some of these so-called hostages out of there, right? I mean, that was what it was for. Is that right?
Yeah, they exchanged some prisoners. You know, they call the Palestinian prisoners, and then they call the ones that the Hamas allegedly took hostages. But whatever terms you want to use, they exchanged some of them.
Right.
But finally, the Israelis just called it off. They had they put on their little show for Blinken and Biden, and now I think they're setting themselves up to be taken down, because after they called the pause off, Iran really laid into them. Basically, pretty much said, "We're coming for you." And then Turkey has a flotilla. It's actually a flotilla that left Turkey. It's a 1,000-ship flotilla that's private. And it has 350 Russian boats that are taking relief down to Gaza that is due this weekend sometime. That's going to be interesting.
So,
what are the Israelis going to do? What's the U.S. going to do? Are they going to start sinking these boats?
Yeah, I mean, because we know that the Israelis and the IDF are paranoid. I mean, they're paranoid. And they're sometimes beyond paranoid.
They're neurotics.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just look at the USS Liberty, right? I mean, if people want to understand how these things work, just spend a few moments going down that rabbit hole. So it's interesting. These are Russian ships that are coming out of Turkey.
Well, there's 350 out of 1,000 have Russian crews. So it's an assortment of private yachts, private boats that's coming out of Turkey with relief.
Private yachts, private boats. Wow.
Yeah. And so, but the Turkish Navy is in the Eastern Mediterranean. They're keeping an eye on the situation, as is the U.S. Now,
so this is separate. So this is a relief effort that is privately driven coming from Turkey?
Yeah, I think they kind of hope to maybe get in during this pause and make a splash. And then there's a Turkish relief organization in Gaza. Am I coming in pretty good on my sound?
Oh yeah, you're great.
There's a Turkish relief organization in Egypt, 3,000 man outfit that wants to go in too. But we'll get into what's going to happen in Gaza. There's a kind of a winter scenario that's pretty nasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can kind of cover that in kind of a sequence.
So
but kind of where go ahead.
Just curious, since we're talking about ships, vessels, what's the latest with Yemen?
Oh, they're making a lot of trouble for the Israeli shipping. It's a very narrow area going through the Red Sea and through the Yemen Strait, I think is what it's called. So they makes the shipping going through there vulnerable. The Houthis apparently asked Saudi Arabia to grant access for their troops to go and head up toward the border of Israel.
Wasn't this the country that's been fighting for about the last 10 years?
Yeah, they're ready. I mean, I don't think there's enough credence being given to the total pile-on that can take place against Israel. No, and that's what when you start committing genocide, which is what I'm going to argue, and I don't think there's any argument at this point. I mean, you got people, the article I wrote, get some, the trigger happy article, get some. Let's go through that because it kind of proves my point of what's really happening there.
I have it all queued up here.
Because the Israelis and the media and their hacks, I get this now. Now I used to get. Remember, I used to get all these tweet messages from Brent Lee.
Yeah,
remember we were talking about that. Well, Brent Lee's no more, and the guy that they just crammed my box with is a guy named Eli David, and he's the worst. He's one of the worst human beings on the planet. He's just a liar.
Does he just hardcore troll you? Is that what he does?
Well, he doesn't troll me. He has no interest in me at all. Zero interest. Nobody has any interest in me.
Well, I do.
Just they're using him as a mouthpiece for spewing his.
So it's
garbage.
Eli David is the quote unquote spokesperson for
one of them. Yeah, one of the propagandists.
For the atrocities.
He's just lame. He really is lame. But I just can't figure out why they're sending me all of his stuff. I don't follow him. I'm not interested in what he has to say.
So you're getting Eli David messages on Twitter from your feed.
It's just interesting the way things work. I have no voice on Twitter,
right?
And these guys like Eli Davis just are going all over the place with thousands and thousands of followers or tens of thousands of followers and likes. And then you go through the messages, and half of them again look like Zio bots.
Yeah, it's all bot farm stuff,
right?
Yeah, I wonder how Musk reconciles that because he's probably aware of this stuff going on.
Oh, I'm sure he is. He's got to ride a tightrope, and of course, we'll talk later about he had to eat shit in Israel.
Yeah, that's an interesting little twist there. Going to go meet with Bibi, and we'll talk about that. Let's get into this article.
Okay, so it's titled IDF is undisciplined and get some trigger happy. Now, the term get some relates to down the page. I have a video about halfway down the page. Let's just watch that. It's a good way to maybe start the sequence. And it's a scene from Full Metal Jacket. Get some from Full Metal Jacket. Since we like to use, spicy media, let's put that on.
All right, hold on.
This is the Israelis, in my opinion. This is what they're like.
Get some! Get some! Get some! Get some! Get some! Come on! Get it! Come on! Get some! Get some! Yeah! 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 I got you, brother. Ha ha! Anyone who runs is a BC. Anyone who stands still is a well-disciplined VC. You guys ought to do a story about me sometime. Why should we do a story about you? Because I'm so fucking good. That ain't no shit neither. I've done got me 157 dead goops killed. And 50 water buffaloes too. Them are all certified. Any women or children? Sometimes. How can you shoot women and children? Easy. You just don't lead them so much. Ain't war hell?
Perfect. Perfect description of the Israelis. It's kind of like the like Hamas is anybody that runs
Right.
or stands still.
Right. Yeah.
So let's go through the kind of shit they've been up to in the last month since we last talked. So we'll start off. We'll just kind of go down clip after clip. It's pretty damning. So let's start. Let's start with this article out of the Guardian. So according to a Guardian report, now listen to this. So they're claiming that they're targeting Hamas. And I've been wondering, well, how much success are they having with Hamas? And, you know, I kind of follow a lot of the war footage, and I'm not seeing too many Hamas bodies. In fact, I haven't seen any Hamas bodies. I haven't seen any Hamas prisoners. Have you? Are you aware of any at all?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you think that by this time the IDF would probably have some prisoners here and there, you know, maybe pulling some guys out of tunnels or whatever goes on?
Absolutely.
Very, very strange about that. So the Guardian's claiming that they estimate 1,000 to 2,000 Hamas have been killed out of a force of 30,000. Meanwhile, 1.5 million people have been displaced going into the winter. 15,000 are dead, including 7,000 children, with thousands more missing and buried in rubble. So it's estimated 7,000 missing, so probably 22,000 dead. And now they're starting back up again on the fighting, so that's going to start rising again. 37,000 have been wounded in an environment, a few hospitals. A lot of those people will die. And then people are getting sick. There's a lot of dysentery going on. 111 UN aid personnel have been killed. So that's not collateral damage. It's eliminating Hamas is an afterthought. The whole goal here is genocide, or as much genocide as they can get rid of. And I think the world is seeing that. But you got to remember that the media in the West is very Orwellian. And if that's who you're depending on for your thinking process, you're just going to miss the target.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we talked about this before, and the whole idea here, and they would do this periodically, right? They would go in and they would, you know, bomb out a part of Gaza just enough, like they'd hit some infrastructure. So they couldn't really develop, right? It'd be like, okay, we'll
blockade.
Yeah, we'll blockade it. We'll stop development, and then we'll allow. Hold on a second. Something's happening with the show. I think. Hold on. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you were a little echoey.
Yeah, it's my. I had to get up in between shows, and I got so focused on putting the show together that I forgot to put my mic up there. So that's much better, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So we know that they will go into Gaza and periodically level portions of it, but not the whole thing, right?
No.
And they would strategically do it, right? Like here, it was like they were like, chipping off on the genocide. And
Yeah,
now,
it was more arrest before. It was kind of a more arrested development type maneuvers.
Exactly. But for whatever reason, right? And I have my own theories about it. But for whatever reason, they decided to go Full Metal Jacket, to use a term from that movie.
Yep.
Right. They decided to go Full Metal Jacket on Gaza. And I think through the audacity and the hubris and the compromise that Israel felt like we can do this without any impunity, and anybody who gets in our way will either bully them or will remind them that we have highly sensitive information on them, and it would be in their best interest to go along with the program versus risk having that highly sensitive information released. People don't connect the dots here. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, father, Robert Maxwell, worked directly with the Mossad, right? They had a freaking sting operation going on, amongst many other things. So if that's true, and that they were operating with the blessing of the Mossad, and they were getting all these politicians on video in compromising positions, right? That's one of the reasons why this thing could happen. Because
there's no gatekeepers. There's nobody minding.
No, because they're all compromised. The majority of them are compromised.
Well, they had this vote in the Congress, the House. Very strange voice. The vote was to equate anti-Zionism to anti-Semitism.
Well, so this is okay. So this gets into one of my theories about why they started to push it now, and it has everything to do with Elon Musk and the ADL. And once Musk and other people like Keith Woods, in the Twitter space, finally said enough. Okay, we've had enough of this, and we're going to brand the ADL as an extortionist crime syndicate, which is essentially what they are. And so this was starting to get a lot of traction on Twitter. It was like, wow, look, people are starting to talk about this in a way that it hadn't been spoken about before. And it wasn't long after that this all started to crank up. And then that's where you get into the whole ADL mindset around being anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic, and they're not even remotely close.
Yeah, but the vote was 412 yes and 1 no, and Thomas Massey was the only nay. That's incredible, given what's happening with this genocide going on, and it's just amazing that the Congress would be that lopsided. And to me, Blinken took a trip to Israel over the weekend, and he looked pretty sheepish.
Oh,
apparently
Blinken.
Apparently, Netanyahu was mad at him for some of the things he was saying privately, and it got kind of leaked that Blinken kind of told Israel to knock it off. It says, I think he basically told him, we're not going to support a further genocide, and he looked kind of sheepish. And he's just a puppet. So
Blinken is way over his skis on this.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, just get that look of like, oh my God, what am I doing here?
Right.
Almost like he didn't even quite realize just how bad these people are.
Yeah, he's kind of an interesting study in some ways, right? Like when I look at him, he reminds me of, like, I think they would use the word mensch in Yiddish, right? Like, oh, he's a good mensch. Like Tony Blinken went to the right school and he did the right thing.
Water boy. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, water boy.
Yeah. And so he's been promoted, and he's got that kind of slightly refined look you would want to have a diplomat to have.
And he's Jewish.
So he checks a bunch of boxes. But when I look at him, to me, he seems highly sensitive. Like this is a highly sensitive guy. And I know nothing about anything going on in his trial.
He almost reminded me of the two guys in the helicopter, the Full Metal Jacket helicopter.
Yeah, he's like he's one of the guys on camera.
Right.
That's who Tony Blinken is.
Just do you kill women and children? How can you do that? Sometimes.
Not only that, but I mean, just think about this. A little divergent. He's got to deal with Biden or whatever Biden is, right? And I've seen video footage of him when Biden says something like stupid or off script. He'll get this look on his face.
Yeah. He's dealing with
like panic. And they were coming back from Israel, and it was when Biden had that weird chin moment. Like he had balls hanging from his chin. It was like, what the fuck was that about, right? And he's talking on the plane, and you can see Blinken, he's just hanging out, right by the area between the cockpit and sort of the front of the cabin. You can just see him. He's watching Biden and trying to make sure he doesn't fuck up too bad.
Lurking in the background. I mean, it almost kind of reminds me of the Nazi propaganda poster where they had the Jew behind Churchill, right?
How much longer do you think that guy's going to stay in that job? Seriously.
God, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, they've just got everything so locked down. That vote, that 412 yes vote, just blew my mind. I can't believe it. Anybody would vote for that.
Was that for the aid to continue to?
Well, that too. Yeah, that too. And then of course Blinken and the U.S. administration has got a request in during one of their trips to kind of use smaller bombs. You're using too big of bombs on these people. It's not targeting. You're just taking out whole city blocks. And the Israelis just told the United States to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, the United States has no more power in the world.
It's unbelievable.
No
so,
power.
Okay, let's just to demonstrate my point, to kind of wrap that up. You got the municipality of Gaza. Let's take a look at the clip there of the public hospital. Let's just look at this damage that they're causing. And
So
I have a little.
That's the library, right?
Yeah, and I have Hamas hiding amongst the bookshelves.
Oh God. Yeah,
You see it?
It's like this idea of the war on terror taken to extreme. Oh yeah, they're hiding behind the bookshelves.
Play the clip, because I think these clips are really powerful, and I don't think people are seeing this stuff. Right above there.
Right. I have to go into Twitter, I think, for that.
Yeah, go to the link.
So where are we?
Municipality got the Gaza's main.
So this is the library.
That's a photo of it, but they got a video of it.
Where's the video?
In the link.
In the link in here, as reported by this. Let's see.
In the municipality of Gaza has a link of the video.
Video transcript, no audio. Hold on.
Did you click it?
I'm trying to. So I'm inside the Intel Literary Hub. All right. Let's see. There's this. Let's see. Is it the same one? Yeah, it's the same one.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not there. It's just an article. Okay.
It is an article. Yeah, but I think we can kind of get the idea.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that's one of them. Just going to, has nothing to do with Hamas. They're using extremely liberal, and I'm seeing their apologists still claiming that they're targeting Hamas. Where are the casualties? What you haven't been. You're either knuckleheads, complete knuckleheads, or you're genocidal maniacs, or both, because you haven't really inflicted any casualties on Hamas. You've inflicted huge damage on the civilians.
Right. Well, it's the infrastructure, right? They want to level as much infrastructure as possible.
Yeah, but people are dying.
Civilians are collateral damage to the infrastructure. They want it gone. They want
80% of the fatalities in these bombings and shellings is people have died in their residences. That came out. They're not out on the street. They're not doing anything. They're not even going to the market. They're just hunkered down in the residence.
Hunkered down, hoping and praying that nothing happens.
Yep, and a lot of it happens in the middle of the night, and that's where the kids are killed. And here's a story. 700 to 900 children in Gaza have amputated legs. So you got the 7,000 dead. If you've got an amputated leg in that scenario, you're in trouble. You're probably unlikely to live.
That's true. That's a really
okay. Here we have. Israel is a terrorist state. I don't like the term terrorist. It's really.
You want me to play this video with this guy?
No, it's okay. But go to the one below because we get a survey of the damage. See the chair there?
Yep. You want me to play that?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. That's pretty powerful.
Oh my God.
Can you enlarge it? And just look how indiscriminate it is. You're saying you're targeting Hamas, and this is the result. You're not killing Hamas. You're doing this. You haven't produced any bodies or prisoners.
Yeah, this is brutal.
Like an earthquake.
Looks like Hiroshima.
Yeah.
What's the average age in Gaza?
Oh, half the population is under 17.
Yeah. Wow.
So they've created firing platforms. They're not. I don't think they're doing that well militarily. Personally, I think that's kind of why they had to pause to try to regroup, because they're kind of wearing down their brigades. And, it's kind of got to be a little tense because they're being ambushed a lot. And I don't think the IDF is being forthcoming with their true casualties either. And they've had a lot of wounded. So the Israelis are getting hit pretty hard on this operation. They've only taken 20% of Gaza. They've managed to wreck everything. But what's left are just firing platforms. And, we went through some of the video of how Hamas fights. Ambush.
Right.
Peekaboo through a window, peekaboo through an alley, through a hole in a wall.
Right. Right. They'll pop up from some kind of structure that they're.
So what we just saw is not conducive to taking out Hamas. I'm sorry. You don't have to be a military expert to see that.
Right. Right. Well, the idea here is that theoretically, if they bomb out enough of it, they'll have no place to hide, and that they'll be.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. They got plenty of places to hide.
No, but that's their rationale, right?
That's their excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their excuse, and it's genocidal maniac type excuse.
I think it's really interesting. This is like some high level Henry Kissinger shit. right? When Kissinger, would I want at some point I want to talk with you about Kissinger. Maybe not in this flow.
Yeah, I have an article on him on the Cambodia operation. He was in the war room, and he would order out the bombers and B-52 bombers and the different raids. It's the same kind of nonsense.
That's what I'm talking about. This is like some Henry Kissinger shit right here. It's at that same level, same genocidal level. The weird thing about Cambodia is that war didn't even really start like in total until we started bombing over there. It's like
That's right. It was relatively stable. That was a mistake, and Kissinger defended it. But it's not the first rodeo for the United States. There's Iraq, there's Libya, there's Afghanistan.
Right.
But now we're seeing the Israeli really taking it to a really high level.
Yeah, this is and honestly, they could give a fuck about what the rest of the world has to say. Right? They don't care.
They don't seem to. I think that's kind of a mistake.
Well, I do too. But then, I mean, I feel like they're being exposed in a way that they've never been exposed before. That said, how many times have we seen things in this country that are egregious and atrocious, and then nothing happens?
Yeah, right? That's what they're counting on.
Nothing happens. So if we just extrapolate from that model, we put it over here, and we're expecting a different result.
Well, it's going to get worse. It's not over yet. That's kind of another one of my points, because you go down here to this. Okay, see this Rihanna clip tweet. This is how displaced Palestinians in Gaza warm themselves.
Rania.
Yeah, let's just watch that. So it's not even quite winter yet, and we're going to get into my winter is coming article.
You know what amazes me? Like, these people have good cheer. It blows my mind, right? Like, these kids have been traumatized, and they're sitting around and getting warm. I mean, I've seen this more often than not, where these people, even though they've gone through this fucking hell, it's like they seem to have good cheer, reasonable attitude. I mean, it's not like they're screaming out the top of their lungs that they want to, kill somebody for doing this. I mean, have you noticed that?
Well, I did kind of notice that. They're smiling, but maybe they're just being for the camera. And the Grim Reaper may not have come to their family yet. So
right. All right.
So then we got Elon Musk rolling into Israel for an eat shit exercise, subjected to some typical black magic and razzle dazzle.
Did you read that article on Macau about Netanyahu as a Satanist? Did you read that one?
Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah.
So there he is. So there he is. They got a crib out there, and apparently, what's happened is that they've determined that the shells that they have in this crib came from a Merkava tank. It's a standard issue of a Merkava, Israeli Merkava tank. So they're using that to razzle dazzle Elon Musk and play the violin music for him.
What the fuck is this? So what is he wearing? Is he wearing a flak jacket?
Yeah, some kind of a vest. There's kind of a message to that too. Here, Elon, here's a tiny little vest for you.
Exactly. It looks like he's wearing the baby's bib.
And we have snipers all over the place. And then there's the image down below that of Elon Musk and Netanyahu looking at the broken windows, and they got the screen up showing Gaza on the other side. So there's another, if you go to your DM, because this is a good segue into some of the stories coming out of October the 7th.
Let's see.
In your DM segment,
Yeah, I have it. So we got Ken Klipperstein, the Winter Watch, 2 Winter Watches, 3 Winter Watches.
It's kind of up at the top of the material I sent you. Let me see where it is. It's
Stop Zionist Hate, Ashok Kumar, October 7th.
Yeah. Yazim Porat. Yeah, it's an interview with Yasmin Porat, who was a survivor of one of the kibbutz attacks.
Let's check this out.
See it?
Yeah, I'm almost there. Ashok Kumar.
I don't recognize the name.
Yeah, Ashok Kumar.
No, that's a different one.
Oh, this is one about October 7th.
Go ahead and play it because it's good. Let's watch this
Okay.
Since you're here.
You keep saying, what about October 7th? What about October 7th? What about October 8th? What about October 9th? What about October 10th? What about October 11th? What about October 12th? What about October 13th? What about October 14th? What about October 15th? What about October 16th? What about October 17th? What about October 18th? What about October 19th? What about October 20th? What about October 21st? What about October 22nd? Let me finish the question. Let me finish answering. What about October 23rd? What about October 24th? What about October 25th? What about October 26th? What about October 27th? What about October 28th? What about October 29th? What about October 30th? What about October 31st? What about November 1st? What about November?
I just think it's really,
and then what about before? What about before October the 7th?
Right.
They're acting like October 7th, which I think is a sketchy day, to be honest with you. I think some sketchy things went on.
well, yeah, I think
It's the only day that matters in this whole event.
right.
Nothing, no history in the past. There's no history for going forward. And now you're in a genocide. And I knew this was going to happen. I mean, it's just so predictable. The time I just knew that this is pretty much what was going to happen. But I also kind of thought we would be into what I call World War Zog, and that's yet to unfold. But I think that's going to happen too.
Well, let's get back to that. Did you want to look at the Asaf Ronell tweet? Was that the one you wanted to look at about the estimates of the fighters? Did you want to look at where in that feed did you want the Ari Hoffman with the handprints?
No, let's see. We got
Solvig 283. We did the library. The
where is that thing? It's yeah. Where'd it go? Kind of up. Maybe it's a little bit higher in the. I think I sent that to you early on.
you got the Ukrainian.
Yeah, we got to watch that later. Oh, there it is. It's called Propaganda and CO. Israeli media quotes that prove Israeli killed its own civilians. That's it.
All right.
Right above the Ukrainian segment.
I got it.
This is probably about 5 or 10 minutes to go through, but I think we should go through it.
Where's the thread? So it's in the thread here.
Yeah, right there.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and just read it and cover it. And then
So
there's that. You can actually hear her voice in an interview on Israeli state radio.
Her name is Porat. Is that her name? Porat.
Yeah, Israel's an interesting country in terms of media freedom.
Yeah.
It's not as locked down as the U.S. is.
Interesting.
There's parties that'll put stuff out in Israel. I've always been amazed at that. I mean, I source them a lot.
Well, you'll find some interesting things in Times of Israel and what's the other one? Not the Haaretz. You'll find interesting stuff in those publications, for sure. A Golan, the terrorists shot them? ? Why Parat? No, they were killed by the crossfire. Understand?
So Parat's the survivor in the kibbutz. kibitz, whatever it's called.
There was very heavy crossfire. Was that the dance festival?
No, this is you remember they were attacking the kibitzes.
Oh, right.
And the army showed up and started countering this attack, allegedly.
Golan. So our forces may have shot them. Why Parat? Undoubtedly, source, Khan, an Israeli real estate broadcaster. So it's electronic intifada.
Well, there's right there is the interview, right there in the blue. That's it.
That's it?
Yeah, that's the interview that she did.
Okay, let's
if you play it, it's in Hebrew, but it's translated.
בגינה של האנשים מהקיבוץ שיש 5 בני ערובה ששוכבים או 6 על האדמה.
Can people see that okay?
Translation? לימ"מ שלנו והמחבלים.
הטרוריסטים ירו בהם?
לא, הם נהרגו מהחילופי ירי, תבין שהיה חילופי ירי מאוד מאוד קשים.
זאת אומרת, יכול להיות שזה כוחותינו ירו בהם? כשניסו לפסל את החוטפים, את החמאס.
הם חיסלו את כולם, כולל הבני ערובה, כי היה שם חילופי ירי מאוד... So
the whole attitude of these the IDF has been shown from day one is get some. It's all about get some. Trigger happy, overkill.
Right. Israeli. Right. This is only 8 days after it all happened. That's interesting.
Yeah. And so they're doing a survivor interview. Now, if you continue on down, there's more. We should probably just go through them one by one quickly because it's very compelling.
Okay, so we have that. That's the interview.
That's the interview. The next one.
This Israeli was shot dead by IDF. He fended off terrorists who attacked his house, but was hit by soldiers. Fire and tragic accident. Ran Poloshani, resident of Nahal, Oz. So this guy gets killed.
Yeah, it's get some. Overusing their weapons, too much heavy fire.
Right. Another Israeli shot dead by
small bombs. They don't know the concept of small bombs. The United States puts in a request to use small bombs. They don't even know what they're talking about. And it shows, when you go through the footage on the ground in Gaza. What's that one say right there?
So it says Apache pilots couldn't differentiate Israelis from Palestinians. The pilots realized that there was tremendous difficulty in distinguishing within the occupied outposts and settlements who was a terrorist and who was a soldier. Or
yes, it is fired at everything. And that's a lot of the casualties at that concert.
Right. Well, that is get some, right? Like the guy from the copter,
I think Hamas was they were after Israeli soldiers, and they were after some hostages to use for the exchanges that are going on right now for Palestinian prisoners. And there's a lot of collateral damage because the Israelis are very well armed, but they're very undisciplined. They're just wild men.
You have to wonder sometimes in a case like that how much drugs might play a role.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Like, when you're really amped up on speed, you'll do crazy shit.
Or cocaine.
Coke or speed, you'll do crazy shit. Right? I mean, you're more apt to do things that are going to be...
I bet you there is a lot of methamphetamine use.
That's what I think.
You're right. I think you got a very interesting point.
Yeah.
Because, during World War II, it was used a lot by the Germans. Really used it.
Well, that's where it was invented. It right.
Yeah.
It's like, let's stay up and fight past our bedtime. Within 3 hours after the attack, some Apache pilots began firing without prior approval. Some of them began to spray the terrorists with the cannons on their own. That's like a speed. I'm telling you, man, that's a speed move. Let's just do it. Let's do it. We know we'll get medals for it. I mean, those cars look like they've been burned out by due energy.
Or I would even advance another theory is maybe they were ordered to do it, just indiscriminately kill and run up the body count to justify this genocide. because the investigation into it comes kind of after the fact. It's coming out now, but meanwhile, look what they're doing. So maybe we didn't even take methamphetamines. Maybe they just took a bunch of their goons and said, shoot the hell out of the place. Who cares? Who cares who the casualties are? We want to see some body count among our own people. That's pretty evil shit. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah. Of course, these are American vehicles.
Of course, Apaches.
Yeah. These are hundreds of 30 millimeter cannon shells. Wow. You say these are deadly vehicles, man. I mean, they are locked and loaded. Look at that.
Yeah, rockets.
Yep. Haaretz confirms IDF killed Israelis. That's, you can bring up a really good point that these newspapers will publish news that we don't do here. Investigation into the incident also revealed that an IDF combat helicopter pilot that arrived at the scene from Ramat David base fired at the terrorists and apparently also hit some of the revelers. So that was the rave.
Yes. Yeah, that's where a lot of the casualties took place. And they had these Apaches flying over. But then they sprinkle it in with the paraglider nonsense, which I just think is totally bogus.
Yeah. Well, the footage was proven to be fake, right? And nobody really talks about that. I mean, the footage came from where? Like Egypt or someplace like that?
Yeah, they can't fly a bunch of paraglider. I mean, anybody who believes that is really need to check their brain.
Anybody that believes that a couple of guys with box cutters and 2 flight lessons under their belts could abduct those planes.
Yeah, very, very similar.
Yeah,
very similar black magic.
Suspension of belief,
and coming from the same sources, I might add.
Right. I mean, when you look at propaganda, the biggest tool is that suspension of belief.
Mm-hmm.
Or suspension of disbelief, right? It's like when you add it all up, does it make any sense at all? Well, it has to make sense because
the key is if you believe the black magic, they got you. They got you.
True. It's true.
Then you can just make up all kinds of shit.
Here's the state that I'm interested in, Russ, is how to create that state in people so that they accept the black magic. That's what I'm interested in.
Well, make sure they don't see anything that we just watched.
They got to get people to a point where they believe what they're being told. And to me, that's the black magic.
Yeah.
Everything else is just props on a set, right? That's all. It's that thing that gets people to agree.
Yes, that's a narrative that comes from the black magic.
It's
let's take Elon Musk to this crib,
right,
and show a bunch of shells and kind of ingrain in his mind that this is babies that were killed here. Well, come on, that's just a prop.
So here we go. This is some infragreen. Woo. So this is a video from the helicopter.
Yeah, they're firing on the road. Is that what they're doing after the people leaving the rave?
Yeah. I'm surprised that it's in green because do you know the stories about the old night vision cameras in green? Do you know about those stories?
No.
So they started off with night. I think they eventually went to red, but they had most of the night vision stuff developed with the green lens and green vision, and they had to stop it because the people that were using the night vision were seeing things that weren't supposed to be there. Right, like they were seeing whatever, like ghosts, like it was like setting up a very weird.
Picked up a little of the paranormal.
That's right. They were picking up on paranormal shit. Firing rounds.
But look at the power of these weapons they're using on these these vehicles.
Oh, it's overkill.
There's no way Hamas could have inflicted that many casualties with.
I mean,
AK-47s.
you use those kinds of weapons on. Come on, let's be real. Tanks and armored vehicles.
Exactly.
Not Kias or Hondas.
Yeah, just complete overkill. Get some. Get some. Oh, the one up there that you just passed talks about this commander ordered fire on his own unit right there. See the guy in the green beret?
IDF Brigadier General Avi Rosenfeld ordered an attack on his own base on October 7th. The division was compelled to request an aerial strike against the base itself in order to repulse the terrorists.
Now, the story here is that there were some Israeli IDF women that were kind of manning the surveillance cameras.
Yeah.
They weren't really armed. They weren't in a situation to defend themselves. And I think that they got hit by this attack he's talking about. They killed them too, threw them into the mix.
I see. So he's
firing on his own troops.
Right. So because he had to take out the invaders. I see.
It's a strange strategy, war strategy, just inflict casualties on your own people.
Yeah.
But the idea is to create a big event, and then the body count's all that really matters, not how people died. Now, granted, supposedly Hamas I think they were led in. They're probably after hostages. And then they make up a bunch of agitation propaganda like baby beheadings. And once you get that out there, then the Eli Davids of the world just run with that forever.
Well, that's how they create the black magic. That's how they get people into a state of belief, right? They'll bring out, just like they did in Libya, Kuwait and Iraq.
9/11.
Right. They create this state in people where they're willing to abandon their reason, or they're willing to abandon their ability to logically, look at whatever so-called reality is. And when they abandon that, then they're making their decisions based on deeper emotional and psychic parameters, which are not rooted in like clarity and objectivity, right? That's where they want to get people. They want to get people in a deep state of subjectivity. And then when that happens, then they bring in the stage props. And
they're not able to separate themselves up
to
evaluate any of this other stuff, any of the stuff that we're talking about,
including
a genocide. Now people are calling it. Not everybody's asleep on the genocide.
So
there's a big anti-war movement going, and I'm kind of impressed with it. We should actually discuss it a little bit.
The anti-war movement is, to me, fascinating because it has two different factions that are inside of that move. Well, okay, let me see if I can rephrase this. There's not two different factions, but what this anti-war movement has done is it's created a kind of weird polarization, right? So you and I, again, on the surface, we would agree that this is madness, this is genocidal, and it needs to stop, right? We would be in agreement with people we would not normally be in agreement with. Right. People that we would normally be in agreement with, many of them have taken the far right position that Israel must be supported at any cost.
Right.
And so our path,
and that's represented by these politicians like Cruz and Nikki Haley, and they're really getting that. I mean, they're getting a lot of traction out of this. So it kind of looks like Nikki Haley's getting a big boost. I suppose she's getting the money. The big donors are circling in on her. Jamie Dimon, Kosh. There's a whole list of them. There's a tweet that list them all.
No, we went through even it's on your feed. Larry Fink.
Yeah.
Right?
So why have they anointed her? Because she's a big Zionist.
She's bloodthirsty.
Yeah, and a neocon.
She's a total neocon. She'll do anything.
So very, very disturbing. Very, very disturbing.
And Nikki Haley, I would say, do not underestimate Nikki Haley.
No, I'm not. I mean, I thought she was kind of a joke, but now I'm not, because look at who's backing her. The big money guys.
Right.
So she's going to have a big war chest to advertise, throw the propaganda out, get these strange messages that support their point of view.
Right. Yep.
Get all the hypnotized black magic people corralled.
Yep. Yeah.
And the other side of the agenda uses too much blaming white supremacists.
Right. Right. Like, yeah. So we agree with you that this is madness, insanity. It's genocidal. But we don't agree with you with your social Marxist hate for the country or a certain group of people. So it's created this really weird kind of torsion effect inside of this conflict. I find it fascinating. I mean, I just step back and watch it and go, everything. It was just like all the pieces of this puzzle just got thrown up in the air. Right now, people are trying to put them back together, but they don't realize.
Yeah, and the puzzle lands. Like you have this situation in Ireland where these little kids have been killed by a Moroccan, and people are outraged finally because their country is being overrun. Right. And I support Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
But I'm not really anti-Muslim. I don't have a big hate of Muslims because I could see they've been corralled into this black magic.
Right.
The problem that they have is they've been ejected from their own region and forced to go live in Ireland or someplace.
Right. So, we made a total mess out of Libya.
Yeah.
Total. And it's like, unlivable. And, we could thank the Obama and Clinton administration for that.
But then you look at who is behind a lot of this immigration stuff, and the Jews. I'm sorry.
Well, it's Barbara Specter Lerner. Come on. She let the cat out of the bag.
And then in Ireland, it's a lot of these Indian Brahmin types that they've brought in.
Yeah.
I put up a post that shows the mayor of Limerick, Ireland.
Yeah.
Classic American or Irish town.
Yeah.
Indian guy. Shows a picture of his family.
Is it the PM from India or Ireland? Indian?
Yes. Food? So they've lost their country. I mean, it's amazing. These people just lose their country, and then they kind of start reacting to it, and they're captured. They can't. They really have no voice, and they start running the racist propaganda on them.
Right.
Yeah. Now, not all Muslims should be targeted in Ireland. I mean, it's just sickening how they've done all this. They created overreactions, put too many people in there, bad things happen, and then there's finally a reaction against it. Understandable, but rather than dealing with the issues that you've let in too much of a foreign element, it just ends up unresolved.
Well, the other side of this too is that there's an economic incentive for these countries to take these people in, right? They're being paid to take them in. They're getting UN money to take them in. I mean, there's also probably a penalty if they don't, but they're being incentivized to bring in, the sort of the new citizenry, right? So it's not just the fact that they're, I'm just going to go along and kind of destroy our own culture or our own race. They're making economic decisions and saying, well, we need these in the future now because we're being compensated for it. In the future because, we're running out of people and we need a new class of people that can do the jobs that we don't want to do.
They are running out of people. That's part of the problem, the demographics. Yeah. Amazing that a country like Ireland would run out of Irish.
Well,
know,
that goes into the social engineering. You go back into the 1960s and you have the Club of Rome. And the Club of Rome is all about depopulation. I mean, that's their agenda. And if there's here, I'll play something from the 60s just to give you an example. Let's do this. All right. So there was a movie from 1972 called ZPG. And what's interesting is when you look at the start of this movie, this is the trailer for it. The guy who you're going to see in the trailer is kind of a dead ringer for Henry Kissinger. And that gives you an idea as to what Kissinger was all about as well. He's a member of the Club of Rome. So this is the 1970 trailer for ZPG, and this is the backdrop. This is the social conditioning and the social engineering that hammered people not to have children. Here we go.
Because it has been agreed by the nations of the world that the earth can no longer sustain a continuously increasing population. As of today, the 1st of January, we join with all other nations of the world in the following edict. Childbearing is herewith forbidden. The conception of a child shall be the gravest of crimes, punishable by death.
Almost all of the species have been extinct since the end of the 20th century. Many fascinating replicas of marine and animal life may appear frightening to children, but we assure each parent there is no cause for alarm. In fact, many of these animals, although totally unproductive, were kept as domestic pets and bought as slaves for 20th century children. These animals contributed nothing, were not a source of food. Our museum houses the largest collection of flowers on this continent. These aesthetic objects have been hydroponically cultivated, and hence it has been impossible to recreate their former aromatic properties. These flowers
Pour gasoline into this car, which is also from the 1950s. And that's all there was to it.
That's Oliver Reed.
Sweet substances cause
the actor there,
Yeah.
he kind of looks like Lee Majors.
A little bit.
primitive instruments. These surgeons were called dentists. However, the true cause of our present atmospheric condition was the unrealistic and inept policies of the leaders of industry. The crimes committed by them were further perpetrated by the political and religious leaders, who irresponsibly allowed the equally devastating crime of overpopulation.
So this is, kind of a 4-minute trailer, but it's not just the only one. You've got Soylent Green, which is all about too much population and we have to eat dead people. This is all like straight up Club of Rome propaganda stuff, right? And this is where they got it.
Yeah, that was aimed at my generation who kind of, really didn't reproduce.
Right.
Oh, my parents had 3 kids. I had 1.
Yep. So it's a drip. It's a slow drip, but it's been hitting people for a very long time. And this is the kind of we're downstream, and yeah, these countries are running out of people. And now it's like, you have this whole other X factor that's come in with this whole transgender piece, and people literally
Or confusion.
altering their ability to procreate forever, right? So that's another part of the story now. It's not just enough to create this idea that having kids is bad for the planet. It's you have to alter your biology to make sure that you don't have kids for the planet.
Okay, let's take a look at the nature of the protest. So I sent you that tweet by Ari Hoffman, who's another Zionist apologist. And I see a big difference between this anti-war movement and BLM. BLM was very random, indiscriminate.
Yeah.
And I think these guys that are doing these protests on this genocide are pretty focused. So if you notice, I don't know if you can bring up that wall that they did red paint on.
Yeah.
So red paint, what's the problem? Can be washed off.
It's a statement.
Yep, and here you have a big Blackstone guy, Schwartzman, kleptocrat, Jewish kleptocrat, moneybags man.
It's interesting contrasting this with the library in Gaza, right, which we just saw.
Yeah, I know. It's been wrecked,
obliterated, and here,
and so these defenders of this genocide and this Zog government. I mean, you should read some of the comments down there. They're sickening. You could sample some of them.
Let's see.
One guy says, "So you have a problem with the targeting of the Blackstone CEO?" That was pretty good retort, but it's mostly just feigned and bought offensive. I'm offended. I'm offended that they disrupted the Macy's parade. I'm offended that they splashed paint over the library. People are going to die in the hundreds of thousands in Gaza.
What do you think of this comment here? They couldn't care less about Palestinians. This crew hijacks any cause. Women, George Floyd, Gaza. They don't care as long as they can cause disruption and bring down Western society. So many are paid protesters. I think there's some truth to that, Russ.
Yeah, there is.
Now, there are people with legit causes. They've got a legit, stake in the fight, right? But then there's the pile-on, and they'll use that pile-on to continue to dismantle, theoretically our society. So I think there's a little truth to that.
But to me, this is a fairly legitimate protest, the way they're doing it.
I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that, but I do think.
So I'm kind of looking at the actions of these people, and I'll continue to look at it. They start bombing stuff and started killing innocents, and then I'll have to adjust my position on it, and that might happen because there's a genocide, folks.
So this is what Paul Prof Space Yak said. What have this group done to deserve the description violent? This act is clearly not a violent one. Well, they're defacing property, but
it's not violence, though.
Not violent.
It's just red paint.
No, because he's a Zionist, which is not synonymous with Jewish. Sand vandalism isn't violence. I like that. Sand vandalism. Here's another one. I have a strong feeling they don't care about Palestinians. It's just an opportunity for them to be violent. Well, again, it's not violent.
Exactly. Overreacting. They just kind of disrupted the parade, spoiled everybody's good time.
Yeah.
So what do you? I'd say get used to it. That should be the minimum of what happens. That's my opinion of it. This is so bad that the nature of the protest, if it doesn't rattle people's cages a little bit, then something's wrong with that picture.
Right.
I defend it.
So where do you? Okay, two questions. And they're kind of related. Where do you think it's going? And then I'll ask my second question after you answer that one.
Well, let's go to my article. I've kind of written about this. My article on the winter's coming article. I forget the name of it. As winter approaches, the next phase of the Gaza genocide looms. So a couple starting points. It's estimated that about 70% of Gaza's 2.3 million people, more than half of them are children, no longer have access to clean water. So on November the 4th, Israel destroyed a water reservoir in northern Gaza as well as a public water tank. So that's striking their infrastructure to set up a genocide. So if you're drinking foul water, you're going to get sick. You're going to get dysentery,
Sure.
and worse. I think we've talked about it, but I don't know how many people. Unless you're watching somebody like Al Jazeera regularly, you're not going to get any of this information.
Right.
So the UN says that there's only 3 liters of water a day available per person to cover their needs. And 50 to 100 liters is an everyday requirement for a person to meet their basic health needs. Sewage flows in the street as all key sanitation services have ceased operating. Actually, there's a lot of acute respiratory infections. And, it seems like there might be like a new strain of pneumonia coming out of China. That's a curious timing.
Right. Yeah.
That could be the killer. I mean, I wouldn't put it past the Zionists to inject that into that population, start spreading that, and get because then they can just wash their hands of it. It's just, things happen, shit happens. There's a disease. We didn't cause it.
Well, that would be an interesting bridge to cross, right? Because then you would have the WHO getting involved, the World Health, theoretically, right? Like the World Health Organization would have to get involved. You would think they would because they stick their nose into everything. That would actually, not that I would want it to happen, but that would be an interesting case study, like in terms of these, globalist NGOs, right? And to see just how deeply they would stick their nose into this conflict. So they've also got some challenges with sanitation too, which is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, the main organization that's gotten involved is the UN.
Right.
And the Israelis are killing them. They've lost 111 of their staff.
Yeah, really? 111 UN?
Yeah, because they're handling a lot of the refugee camps, and the Israelis are bombing them.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's this nonsense.
And there's no statement from the UN.
That finally got the UN involved when they started losing their staff.
Okay,
you finally saw that head of the UN, the Hispanic guy, get off his ass. He reacted to that. So you had 36 hospitals in Gaza. They've been targeted. They've destroyed 28 of those. Just obvious targeting of hospitals on the premise that Hamas is hiding there.
Right.
And the remainder have no fuel or power. And I don't know how much supplies got in the last 6 days. Probably a token amount. Then there's this. Where did this come from? About the U.S. administration remains wary of Netanyahu's in-game and seeming lack of a plan for what to do once Hamas is defeated. But I now think that Hamas is going to drag him out quite a bit longer. There was no sense that the pause would turn into a lengthier ceasefire. Well, that's true now. The senior administration official said. There's some concern in the administration about unintended consequences of the pause, that it would allow journalists broader access to Gaza and the opportunity to further illuminate the devastation there and turn public opinion on Israel. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Now I kind of get to kind of the answer to your question. Winter in Gaza is problematic when you have no shelter. So we saw how they're living, kind of rudimentary tents. There's an acute shortage of warm clothing and blankets. And it looked like people may have been trying to go back into North Gaza to maybe pick up some of their items left behind. And the Israelis wouldn't let them go, wouldn't let them do it. And if I would be trying to get a hold of my warm clothing and blankets, try to go back home, or there's a lot of stuff just on the streets, littered.
Right. But you're taking a crapshoot by being on the streets.
Yeah, you are. But there's supposedly a pause, but they ordered them not to go back up to North Gaza. So here's kind of how people are living. You see this Dan Cohen?
Yeah.
Dan Cohen is a Jewish guy that's anti-Zionist. Good guy. He's the voice of truth. Let's watch that.
Oh, that's horrible. Jesus.
I'm sleeping under there.
Yeah, I know. That's horrible. Oh, my God.
So now I have a segment, winter weather in Gaza. The problem with Gaza, it's windy all the time. Just year-round windiness. In the winter months, it frequently gets up to 10 miles per hour or even 14. So they can, just windy there. Starting in mid-December, so 2 weeks, especially into January and February, it gets cold in the evenings and overnight. There's a 15% chance of rain daily. There are several days below freezing during a typical winter. A 10-mile-per-hour wind creates a further wind chill of 8 degrees.
-8.
-8. And if you get a 15-mile-per-hour wind, it's like about -14. Then add the effect of wetness. So there will be a number of nights where already weakened people living in wrecked buildings and tents and, under under stones, like those sort of makeshift caves or whatever those were,
right,
will be exposed to hyperthermia. Then they have a weather map showing the overnight, kind of starting about daybreak, dawn to daybreak. It's cold.
Yeah. So, okay,
that's coming.
This is the immediate future. Humanitarian crisis. So
yes. That's the number one thing I would point out, and seemingly an indifference to it.
So what is Zog's next moves?
Just more terror and killing until they push these other Arab nations into a regional war with them.
How much does it take, though? That's what I want to know.
I do too. Yep.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Then, this incident with the Turkish flotilla will be interesting. See how that's dealt with.
I mean, the wild card to me out of any of them are the Yemenis.
Well, they're in the fray, yeah, but they're not nearly as powerful as Hezbollah and Turkey and Iran.
But there's just weird alliances with Hezbollah and Hamas. Like there's this weird crossover, and I just don't think Iran is going to put itself in jeopardy for a number of reasons. Now, Yemen, they don't have those alliances. Like Yemen is more of a wild card, and the Houthis have been fighting the Saudis. I mean, they finally stopped because the Saudis were getting their ass kicked. So this is a country that knows what it's like to fight. And to me, they're the wild card in the region. And if there's any conflict that's going to take place, it's not going to be a ground war in Gaza between Gog and Magog. I think Yemen's the player here, and that they can deploy troops to Yemen. Israel could say, "Hey, look, you got to stop these guys. They keep taking our ships." So I could see something like that, and that to me might be more of a kind of tinder point, because I think if these Arab nations or these Muslim nations or neighboring nations, if they were that incensed, we would have seen something by now.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you probably have 22,000 dead, including the missing, and this humanitarian winter coming on. And this pause was only temporary, and now it's been shut down again. And so it's just like, what's going to happen next? You got Blinken going over there looking sheepish and like he's embarrassed to even deal with these guys, even though he's a hack. So the Israelis are still managing to get 142 to 1 votes in Congress. And it looks like the next president of the United States is going to be their person. So it's a pretty amazing operation.
Well, they win either way. If it's Trump, they win. If it's Haley, they win. If it's DeSantis, they win.
All the candidates are Zog candidates. It's just amazing.
So the question now becomes, who can stand up to this? This is really what I was, this was my next question. Where's it going? And who can stand up to these people?
It has to be these larger states in the Middle East. And they could defeat Israel. According to, like McGregor, if you listen to Colonel McGregor, if you listen to Scott Ritter.
Yeah.
They think that if these other big states in the Middle East get involved, that Israel's in huge trouble.
Well, it remains to be seen, because I don't think Russia's going to get involved unless they get involved through some proxy relationship with Syria.
They will. They've already given Hezbollah some serious anti-ship missiles to deal with the U.S. fleet.
Yeah.
So there'll be suppliers. Now, Iran, I understand Biden is kind of cutting them brakes on the oil that they can sell, and hasn't really cracked down hard on Iran, hasn't really enforced the sanctions. And,
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they need to keep oil prices lower here.
Yes, and keep Iran out of this situation.
Right. And that is in order to get theoretically reelected, whether it's Biden or somebody from the party, right? They need to have some semblance of, oh, look what we did. We reduced the oil prices, we reduced inflation. So they're going to cut corners. They allowed Venezuela to start shipping oil again. So that's one of the reasons why I'm paying like $2.49 a gallon here versus a year ago where it was $1 more. So that's, I think
they managed the oil market pretty well, even though they don't have any oil. They have a little oil left in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think the whole idea here is now they're going to create more distress on the local populace, try to force more of them out, relocate them. I mean, they just want to level the whole place. I mean, let's be honest. They want to get rid of them all, which is genocide, and they want to level the whole place. And, do they want to put that canal in there? Or, is this related to the gas reserves that they found? They just made an executive decision. Got to go. And we'll make up a story along the way. And
because of the status of these refugees is really what they are in Gaza, because 1.8 million people lost their homes, they're displaced.
Yep.
And going into winter, you could have the casualties, the genocide, go into the hundreds of thousands, probably mostly through disease and a lot of dysentery and cholera and things like that. Kind of like at the end of World War II. See, people don't realize at the end of World War II, the people that were still held in the camps were dying because the Germans' supply lines had been destroyed.
That's right.
That's the same situation.
Yeah. I mean, there are startling pictures, which, theoretically have been disputed by people. There are startling pictures of those camps where the people in the camps were hanging out around swimming pools. Have you seen those pictures?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, it got bad, but it got bad in the end.
In the beginning. That's in the beginning.
Yeah. The last months of World War II were really tough on everybody. There was starvation diets everywhere.
Yeah.
Certainly somebody in a camp is not going to be the top priority when the German civilians are only getting 1,000 calories a day.
Yeah. They had rickets and dysentery and all that shit.
Yeah, and cholera and typhus was big.
Yeah.
And that's going to be replayed. I think you'll see typhus, cholera, dysentery. God knows, maybe this new pneumonia that's going around, this new white pneumonia.
White lung.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Right.
So then I had a couple other interesting media items that I wanted to share. These Ukrainian clips.
Oh yeah.
So apparently last week, Zelensky created a universal mobilization of all men and women between the ages of 17 and 70. So you go to the article. I have a picture of that. It's in the. Where did I put that?
I got three. That's the girl that's saying to the soldiers, "Oh my God, that is so pathetic."
Yeah, that's the last one. The first one is the men. Now look how grim-faced these old men are. They've been conscripted. People have got to see this.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, this is theater of the macabre right here.
So we got this woman singing, serenading these old men, 50-year-old men. They're in uniform, conscripted, and they look pissed.
They're like, we're about to die, and you couldn't even get us Beyonce.
Right. Now look at these guys. Jesus.
This guy right here, the look in his face is glass.
I know they're going to die. How would you like to be 50 years old? Like even your age guys are like, guys your age are there. I can see you sitting there. This guy.
Wow. That's what you call cognitive dissonance. Those two realities just do not match up.
Not happy campers. It's like the Volksstorm in 1945 Germany, when they called up all the old men, all the World War I veterans.
So here's women on the front.
Yeah, the second one, she's in a trench somewhere in the Ukraine. A woman in uniform.
I know women want to have equal rights and all that stuff, and I support them, but I don't support women in war. Just don't. More footage showing Ukrainian women on the front line bringing women into the fight is a sign of a desperate, make no mistake.
Yeah, they're going to beat the Russians with these old men and women. Good luck. Good luck with that one. They're just going to kill them.
This is all they have left. The young, fit, fighting age men. Well, I mean, we can get into a whole discussion because that's what war does, right? It takes out generations. I mean, they just took out a generation of young men who could basically, populate the next generation. They're gone. And so what'll happen here is, it's like this in a weird way is kind of like Gaza, right? Let's eliminate most of the Ukrainians. Let's get them out of here because it's a war-torn country. They'll leave, and if not, they'll go to war. They'll die. It'll have to be rebuilt. And there are people, who have made the case that Ukraine is really kind of the far end of the Greater Israel project, right?
Well, I have heard through my Ukrainian sources, quote unquote, that a bunch of Israelis are showing up in Lvov in Ukraine. Okay, here's the clip.
That's sad.
Я поранена, я поранена, я поранена.
I've been hit.
Я поранена.
Я не знаю. Я не знаю.
Бачиш?
Прилетіло щось.
Так, ти не норми.
Був сильний.
Аль-Каїда! Ти в порядку?
Так. Все мене.
Вставай, ти норми. Аль-Каїда!
Зелених, я прийняла. Дивись, я цей, коли це я наклала, я попускаю все один, коли ти наклала. Лишайте, щоб тебе було. Почекай, лишайте, щоб було. Зараз тримаю, хай трошки зараз посипається. Окей? Водичку як треба, хочеш?
Еще дать?
Wow.
Now, the next one is a young girl, and you'll notice that there's English being spoken in the background, and she has about 4 little, I don't know, putting it on Instagram or something, and you can hear the English in the background. Sounds like she's embedded with Americans or Brits, and she speaks English. Kind of, cute 18, 19-year-old girl.
Yeah, she's cute.
Play it?
Yeah.
It's not on the screen.
І так, сьогодні у нас яке? 1 жовтня. Діти в школу, а ми на штурм.
Oh, this is brutal.
Тут земля воняє трупами. I see. It's nothing.
Yes, it's gone.
International.
Unbelievable.
No, please no. I'm scared, Mike. I'm so scared.
Yeah, keep watching. Yeah, I'm trying. Keep your eyes peeled. I'm trying. Everyone pick.
Russ, that's really hard to watch.
Yeah, it is. She looks like she got hit with, probably some debris from the soil or something from the fragments. Hit her in the chin.
Well, at least she got to keep her nose ring. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But that's hard. That's really hard to watch. I mean,
she goes, that's nothing. She's bleeding all over her chin. It's nothing. It's nothing. And then crawl back into the trench and,
It's the work of the devil, Russ. The work of the devil. The devil.
Yeah, too many people are having to go through this. Not just, the men, nobody really talks about the men either. Yeah. Nobody even talks about the men in Gaza.
The devil is here amongst us. This is the works of the devil. I'm telling you, man. And we're, I keep thinking about that vote. And there's only one reason why they all voted that way. Only one. It's to get reelected. That's it. Because I'll tell you why. If they didn't make that vote, AIPAC would have lined up a candidate to go against them in their next election and would have used that as a major point in tearing them down. Right? It's the only reason why they did it. They just wanted to get reelected.
Well, money controls politics, not so much the message. The message doesn't even matter.
Right. But you're not going to get the money unless you're in office.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you have the backing of the ZOG.
Right.
And various elements of the ZOG, the military industrial surveillance complex. And so this is all kind of coming out. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I don't think too many of do you see any comments? Do you see anything in the comment that sort of disagrees with what we're talking about? I don't see the comment.
Not in this room. It's what I do find interesting is that there's a whole group of what I would call young progressives that are kind of, seeing the bigger picture. So you have people like Jackson Hinkle or Aaron Mate, Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore. And so there's a whole group of Jimmy Dore used to hang out with the Young Turks. right?
Yeah.
And so Jimmy Dore has, left that world. He's no longer a part of that mindset.
Well,
And
he's
so
really paying attention to this Gaza stuff. He's not
Jimmy
tuned
Dore's
out on
great.
that at
I
all.
love Jimmy Dore, and so you have a lot of these young progressive guys and women as well. And they're not buying it, right? And they're bringing really intelligent commentary to this whole discussion. So to me, that gives me some hope, right? And the right is so weird on this whole thing. Like the right is just tethered to the teat of Israel, and if you don't do that, you're going to be called a lover of Islam, or somebody who supports intifada or whatever. I mean, it's
or that you favor mass migration. They really got this Hegelian dialectic where they, like you say, they throw the chips up in the air.
Yeah.
And then you and I could go through each one of these issues, and Islam and jihadist or whatever. I would think there would be some jihadist.
Yeah.
Something's really wrong with the Muslim world if they don't have jihadists going.
Right.
Something's really wrong with them. Are you kidding me? I'm supposed to be condemning that? Open air concentration camp, even though this October 7th thing was largely faked, I think, or manipulated.
Right.
The idea that somebody might strike out at Israel that's a big surprise to you?
Right.
That's a big surprise to these guys like Eli David? Really? You're surprised?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And wait till this young generation in Gaza. I mean, that's probably where they're going to have to kill them. That's why they want to genocide them.
Of course, they don't want a generation of people with an axe to grind.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course. It was really interesting back when 9/11 happened, and shortly thereafter, somebody asked Farrakhan if there would be a global jihad. And Farrakhan just looked at him and laughed. And he said, no, there's no way, because there are too many sects inside of Islam, especially the two main ones that don't agree on their ideology. And then somebody asked him again, like, I don't know, 10 or 12 years later, 13 years later. And somebody asked him again, and he said, do you think that it could happen? He said, somebody asked me that after 9/11, I said, no. Now, if you ask me that question, I think yes. The answer would be much closer to yes. So that gets to your point. Like Farrakhan had observed how things had unfolded over time and how there had been no real attempt to ameliorate any of these situations, whether they're Iraq or Afghanistan and now Gaza, right? That there had been, enough violence and death and destruction that even the most disparate elements of Islam could come together and agree. And we may not like each other, or we may not agree on the same application of our faith, but we like these guys less. So to that point, I think he was right, and I, how much more would it take? And this gets back to the question we had earlier. At what point do all those countries in that area just say enough is enough? What is going to be enough here? Because it clearly hasn't been enough. I don't know if we can answer that question, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there's going to be events. Of course, I kind of think the event will be in the United States, and
I do too.
Kind of thing blamed on Iran, probably.
But let's play this out for a second. Let's say that Israel is successful in their project, and their project is to level the area and get rid of the people.
Oh, they've already been successful.
I mean, get rid of them all.
Yeah,
right.
Move them out of the desert, something
right.
like that. Get them into Egypt.
Right, exactly. So then what happens after that? I mean, is there going to be any blowback, any kind of declaration of
well, the
humanity here?
the different Arab states have made it very clear that the ethnic cleansing out of Gaza is a major red line. So what does that mean?
So they crossed the red line. Like, what is going to be the red line?
That way?
Yeah, it's headed that way. Okay.
I think they've crossed a lot of red lines already because it's pretty apparent that there's a genocide underway. And I think the leadership in these countries is going to have to look back at their role, when history is written later. Like, where were you when this is going on?
Yeah.
And what are they going to say? My hands are tied because we're under Zionist control or influence. Well, then you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to, you can't hold power anymore. So at minimum, there's probably going to be a radicalization or a change of the leadership in these countries, whether they get involved into a war or not. But I think they're going to get into a war. And
that's what biblical prophecy would say, right?
It kind of seems like Israel is just pushing in that direction.
Sure.
Because they got the daddy America supposedly in their pocket.
Right. The biblical story is Gog and Magog, which comes out of Ezekiel. And Gog and Magog come from the north, right? So they come from the north into Jerusalem to wage war against the sons and daughters of Israel. So if you look at the north, like Iran is theoretically north of Israel, but so is Russia. Russia's north of Israel. And I just wonder ultimately what Russia's role is going to be in all of this.
I think they want the United States out of the region, out of that whole area of the world. I think they have a major goal. So anything that supports that and that hurts the United States economically in terms of its reputation in the world. And I think they look at. I don't think they really have any interest in saving the Gazans, especially because they're look at all the good PR they're getting just as this goes on. Takes the chips off the United States table constantly.
But I think Israel has already made some of those deals, right? Like they turned Haifa, which is a deep sea port, over to China for management. The United States managed that port for a long time. China now manages that port. You got the Belt and Road stuff coming in theoretically, right? You've got BRICS. So you've got, Russia and China as part of that. I think it's going to be interesting because Israel could theoretically flip its allegiance to Russia and China and go more BRICS. And where would that leave the United States? That to me would be probably the big turning point. Like all of a sudden Israel's like, okay, thanks for your help. We've got this Belt and Road thing and we're partnering with BRICS.
We got ourselves a new girlfriend, sort of.
Right. I think that would be a turning point. And then all of a sudden it's like, and usually that would coincide with some kind of economic or financial crisis in this country because the United States wouldn't have the same kind of power or the same kind of leverage. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think Israel will eventually realign with BRICS. And then that will be the domino that will fall.
If there is still an Israel, it hasn't been turned into a parking lot.
Yeah.
With all these weapons that everybody has.
Right. There's so many of them floating out there from Ukraine to Afghanistan.
Hezbollah has only fired like 1,000 rockets into Israel. They have 140,000. They haven't done anything. Hezbollah and Hamas still has 28,000 men in the field.
Well, as
you can't be too impressed with the military prowess of the IDF in Gaza.
Yeah. Well, they got their ass kicked back in, was it 2016 when they decided to go into Lebanon, and they got whooped in 2016. So my opinion of their fighting force was not once I saw that, I was like, whoa, aren't you guys supposed to be elite fighters? You got your butts whooped in Lebanon. You had to retreat.
Well, last month I've been following the combat in Gaza. I've been putting up these maps that show the area being taken, and it's very, very slow. They just move in like block by block. I think they're trying to keep their casualties down.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've crawled down into these tunnels. They haven't sent any, dogs or little guys down in there. It's not like Vietnam where you throw the smallest guy in your platoon into the hole.
The tunnel rat.
the tunnel
rat terrier. Yeah.
Seen any signs of that? They're not taking any prisoners. Not producing any dead Hamas. What the hell's going on?
Yeah.
Just killing civilians.
We used to have war correspondents back in the day that would give us some insight into that, but those days are long and gone. So Russ, I probably won't see you until after the holiday and first of the year. Have yourself a great Christmas.
Yeah.
You doing anything special for it?
No, I'm just staying inside. I got, I'm a little bit hobbled. I don't want to slip on wet, slippery pavement.
Right. Yeah. Got it. Well, whatever you choose to do, I hope it brings you some joy and some cheer and some good times. And you take good care of yourself. And we'll see you on the first of the year. Okay.
Okay. See you, everybody. And Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to you. This is Russ Winter. Check him out. Go to winterwatch.net and you can see all those articles and more. Mods, thank you for being here. Appreciate all your help. Chataria, thanks for being here as well. I'll be back on Sunday night with Sunday Night Astro Live. I just did an interview with Alpha Vedic. I was thinking of, anyway, Alpha Vedic on their network yesterday. It's a really good interview. I really enjoyed hanging out with the guys over there. Good conversation, great community. And I look forward to doing more things with them as we cross-pollinate and, do our thing, right? Our little Pisces Vesica, where, we kind of meet in the middle and form this very interesting band of networks, invisible networks that hopefully will get us through these what appear to be very dark times. I mean, that was a dark show, and I know it wasn't for the faint of heart. Looking at some of the stuff that we normally don't see. I got to tell you that women in war troubles me. Women fighting, I do not like women fighting. I never liked women mud wrestling. I don't like women in a boxing ring. We're doing MMA. If you want to do it, that's fine. I'm not into it. I'm not into women in war. If you have to take up arms to defend your home or whatever, that's fine. But it's a sad statement on society when that happens. It just breaks my heart. Shouldn't happen. But the devil's amongst us. That's all I have to say. When that happens, right, when we get to that point, there's I just froze. We're done there.